when do I need to have these tools? Is it in my 20s that I'm coming up with a will and trust and power of attorney? Or is it like, for sure by the time you're 40, you should?
We go back to our Mount Everest story. As part of that ascension side of the mountain, you've got to start early. You got to be consistent. You need to invest appropriately. If you start at 18 or 20 and you just put money into a savings account earning 1 or 2%, it's not going to get you or keep you on track for retirement. So you've got to have the right tools. Something else that's really important is also to protect yourself and your family. And that's where estate documents are really important and crucial. Estate documents are something that are done by an attorney. As much as I and Brooke pretend we're attorneys when, we play them on TV.
Thank God we're not.
Yeah, we really aren't. And so we're not going to give legal counsel to people, to our clients that we work with. But there's documents that you should have in place to protect yourself and your family. It's a trust, a will, a medical directive, and a power of attorney. Now, a trust gives a legal separation. It allows you to control your money, your assets, everything that you've earned. It allows you to control those beyond the grave. So that when you're gone, you get to dictate who gets what, when, and how. A will gets into the nitty-gritty. It allows you to make sure that this son or this daughter or this family member gets a specific item. The medical directive is an important document that if again, you end up in a hospital, you're unable to make decisions for yourself. This allows you to, while you're healthy, make a decision of what you want done with your own health. And then the power of attorney. The power of attorney is just a crucial, important document that you need. And that allows you that if you're unable to act and make financial decisions, that you've been able to delegate someone that you trust, that they can make those decisions in your behalf. And that's part of making sure you're protecting what you're saving as you're climbing the mountain.
Love that. So on my ascension, when do I need to have these tools? Is it in my 20s that I'm coming up with a will and trust and power of attorney? Or is it like, for sure by the time you're 40, you should?
I think it's actually wild that we wait so long to have those in place. I think that's kind of that summit, right? That area up top, they're like, oh, our life is really changing. We got to get things in order.
Yeah.
I just did my will and my trust, and I did it because I now have assets, or I'm at the stage in my life that I'm like, I probably want these to be protected. But my most important asset, I really need protected, and that's my children. Who's going to raise my kids if I'm no longer here? Yeah. And I think it's, I flippantly tell people, I'm like, this is really important. You got to get 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I tell, I just beat it like a dead horse. You need this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you need this. And so I went and did it, but I did not realize, we'll talk about it, retirement is emotional. As a mom, I can't tell you how emotional it was for me to verbalize to someone, hey, if me and my husband don't make it, here's how I want to raise my kids. Here's how much money they get here, 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 and here. Had I, hindsight's 2020, if I look back and say, what if I would have put nothing out there? Who would have raised my kids? How would they have spent our money on our children, right? That's a big deal. And so we kick the can down the road and thinking, hey, we don't need this. We're going to live forever if we're, take care of ourselves and don't go skydiving and don't ride a motorcycle 120 miles an hour. But truly, we live in a world that things can happen. And so the sooner the better. When you have assets and people you want to protect, that is the time that those are crucial to get in place.
Okay. Love that. Love that answer. What else do I need to think about as we're making that ascension? I
think one thing to point out is we've talked a lot about these vessels that we can pour into, right? Mm-hmm. But there's another side of your balance sheet, right? It's your liabilities side. And I think that we like to spend money. I like to spend money. Who am I kidding, right? When Stephen made his joke about shoes, I'm like, 2, I would have bought 4 for sure. And every color they had. But I think, people ask, how much money do I need in retirement? I'm like, I don't know. How much do you want to spend? How much debt do you have? We have clients that need $25,000 a month to go on their yacht and take vacations. We have clients that have, a couple $1 million in their retirement accounts, and they live on $2,500 a month because it's what they've always lived off of, and they want to leave every penny they can to their children. And so I think we don't think about it, and I sometimes don't think about it, even as a financial advisor, but I think about, hey, the decisions I make today for a new home or a new car or a vacation, how will, and it will in some capacity, impact my long-term financial goals? Because that debt side is just as powerful, if not more powerful than that asset side. You can have lots of assets, but if you're drowning in debt and your interest rate on your credit card is 29%, doesn't matter how many assets you have sitting there, it's going to feel like you're suffocating.
Yeah.
And so I think that liability side is super important, right? And we need additional Sherpas, additional people to help us consolidate those things and plan accordingly. But I also think that there's a part that maybe most financial advisors won't touch on, but we may not make it to retirement. And I know that's a horrible thing to think about. So I just want to encourage people to have this balance between, hey, I'm going to hope and plan for the future, but I'm going to schedule every couple years, I'm going to make a memory with my kids and take them on a big trip. Because, I'll never forget, I was a teller 15 years ago. And I remember this lady came through our drive-thru and she had all these checks, because checks were still how you gave people money back then. And in the memo, it said, happy retirement, congratulations. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Rose, you retired, congratulations, what are you going to do? And she just got super buttoned up and she just said, you know what, my husband and I worked our whole life to retire together. He retired 60 days ago, and I just retired, but he passed away before I could retire. So I have no idea what I'm going to do in retirement. And so that's a horrible story to tell, but it's the reality of life. So as much as I want to beat a dead horse and say plan for the future, yes, absolutely we should. But don't forget to treat yourself and the people that are important to you, because for some, that future won't come.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's just being a realist, right? We have to plan both ways. And so we've talked about, like you said, these vehicles, all of those different things when it comes to making that ascension. What are some of the biggest pitfalls that you see?
Some of the major pitfalls is starting too late to make, if you don't start putting money away, you need compounding interest to work for you, not against you. And as Brooke was saying, if people are over leveraged with debt, they go out and buy a brand new car. They lease a vehicle. They buy a house that's too big for them. Their mortgages, they're house poor. Those are problems. So you've got to avoid debt or try to minimize the debt. Make sure it's in line with your income. You need to make sure you start investing early to put money away as quick as you can and as frequently as you can. A lot of people will borrow money from their 401ks, and that can be a major pitfall. Because that money not only gets taken out of the market, it's no longer working for you, but you're also now having to pay it back. And so you're compounding the issue. And so a lot of people, when they accumulate a good balance in their 401k, they still view it as money they can use now, when really it should be money they leave alone. When individuals will transition their jobs, if they leave one company and move to another, often they'll forget about their 401ks, or they won't bring those accounts over, or they won't consolidate. And so they forget about what their money is, or even worse, they'll cash it out. And so that's something you really should, any money you're putting away towards retirement should be earmarked for retirement, for the future you. And stay out of debt. Try to minimize the amount of debt that you're going into. So those would be the keys that I would have you avoid. Yeah.
Any others you can think of, Brooke?
Do your best to remain unemotional. Which is wild, coming from the most emotional person I know, which is me. But I think that we are emotionally driven people. And I think that when things get tight or things get tough, we want to clam up and pull back, right? And I think, we have this wonderful chart that we show people that when the market is up, yay, everything is great, let's go buy in, right? It's that's the worst time to do that. But emotionally, it feels like the best time. When the market's down, we just want to get out, bail out, jump ship. I want out of here. It's too painful. I can't see that pullback, and people get scary and they pull out when we're down, and we put it on the sidelines. We say, okay, well, we'll wait for it to be a little bit calmer. Then we'll get back in the boat. That is 100% backwards in every direction. And so in this part of life, manage your emotions. Remember that money can be emotional, but it shouldn't be emotionally driven.
Okay. I love that. I love that. Don't be emotionally driven. Good luck.
You sound like my husband.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about these Sherpas too, right? You mentioned these different professionals that we can have help us along our journey. How often should I be checking in with them? I think you mentioned every few years, right? We're making memories. Should I be making memories with my wealth advisor more often than that? What does that look like?
Sure. So years ago, my wife and I, we had this little condo in Holiday, Utah, and we needed to do some plumbing work. And this condo, because it was an older building, they had to shut off all of the water to 200 units in order for people to do any plumbing work. And when they shut it off once a month for a couple of hours, and so being the guy that I am, I said I can do this repair myself. And they shut the water off. I went and started pulling the sink apart, realized I had the wrong parts. And so I sent my wife to Home Depot to go get the right part while I worked on some other things. And then I realized I'd sent her to get the wrong part. And so we passed each other, as we were driving to Home Depot. And I start getting calls from the property manager saying, Stephen, hey, these other plumbers, these professionals, they're done. They're ready to turn the water back on, make sure that it's working, that everything is good to go. And you're the only one we're waiting on. And I said, I'm sorry. I need you to wait a little longer. And so as the time went on, I kept working on it, ran into additional issues. Finally, when they called the 5th or the 6th time, I just said, listen, tell one of those plumbers to come over and I'll pay them to do it right. And sure enough, this individual who had years of experience came over in 10 minutes, did what I couldn't do in a couple of hours. And he fixed it. And we turned the water back on. Everything was great. There was no leaking. It was wonderful. But it did cost me a little bit of money to have that professional come and help.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, I think that the earlier on that you can bring in trusted professionals, individuals that have experience, the better off you're going to be. So financial advisors are wonderful individuals to bring into your trusted group, your crew, early on, because they'll be able to work with you and make sure that they're charting out a path that's going to lead where you want it to go. Working with qualified CPAs, certified accountants, those are people we'd also encourage individuals to work with to make sure that you're looking at all the tax savings and that you're being as smart as you can with your dollars. Estate attorneys, again, there's other websites and resources out there where you can get those estate documents for much cheaper doing it yourself. But I had an attorney a few years ago, I asked him about it. I said, what do you think about those do-it-yourself estates and trust documents? He said, I love them. I said, why do you love them? He says, because people pay a couple $100s to have their estate documents done on a website, and they're done wrong. So then after they're gone, their children come to me and they pay me thousands of dollars to litigate their estate when the kids are fighting because the documents weren't done right. And so there's people that have climbed Mount Everest on their own, and they've done it successfully. But for me and my family, I want to make sure I have the best people to make sure it's a successful journey. But the earlier you can get a team of trusted individuals around you who have experience, I think the better off your journey is going to be.
Yep.
And how often should I be meeting with my team?
Yeah. There's typically we're going to be meeting with our clients 1 to 2 times a year just to have check-ins to see how they're doing. Now, of course, there's mile markers that we've talked about, that there's certain check-in points where there's going to be years where we're going to see clients 4, 5, 8, 10 times as they start to transition into retirement, as there's more important decisions. When we're on the ascension side of the mountain, that's the easy side of the mountain. All you've got to do is put money away, live within your means, and continue to invest. That's the easy side. And so those clients, we only need to see them once or twice a year just to check in. But as they start to transition to the summit, as they get ready to retire, and as they get into retirement, there's going to be a lot more hand-holding and a lot of opportunities where we need to make sure that we're still staying on track.
The ascension is the easy side? I thought retirement was going to be the easy side, you guys. Come on. Stephen and Brooke, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, and thanks to all of you for joining as well. And we will see you on the next episode of Guiding You Forward.